Hey, how's it going? So in this tutorial, I'll be showing you how I did this artwork right here. I'll be talking over a time lapse of me doing the actual artwork. So there are a lot of useful tips right here. So without further ado, let's go. Okay, so since the beginning, I knew that I wanted to work with crystals. So I kind of start with a cube and adding a lot of subdivisions and then adding a displacer. Because the idea is to use a Voronoi fracture to turn this into multiple crystals, right? So yeah, I'm adding the Voronoi fracture right now, and the cool trick with this Voronoi fracture is instead of using a standard like generator, I'm using I think a matrix, matrix object. So let's stop right here. If you see right now, I'm actually using a matrix object as a source for the Voronoi fracture, and the result of this is that instead of we have like those different cuts, we kind of have super like square cuts with the Voronoi. You will see right now that I kind of have like super uniform, and this is amazing because later I can add some random effectors and turn these cubes shapes into crystals. So yeah, right now I'm adding a random effector to randomize a little bit of the scale and then the rotation and probably the position as well. I don't remember exactly if I used that. Yeah. So I'm just saving the file. Okay, right now I'm adding a plane effector, so I can kind of transform this into a cluster of crystals, right? From the center. Yep, and then messing with the weight to get like more difference between the heights of the crystals, like from the ones in the center and on the outer edges. Yeah, I'm turning everything into like a single object, so it's easier to manipulate. And now I'm working in the terrain, right? This is really simple, but I don't think that you need like super custom terrain for what I was thinking. So right now, it's actually something that I use a lot. Instead of using a single noise, I use a layer object. And with the layer object, you have the ability to blend two noises together. So right now, if you see, let's pause right here. If you see, I'm actually using a noise multiplied with a gradient. So I can get this kind of different elevation. It's not super complex stuff, but it works really nicely. Yeah, I'm just adjusting some things. Yeah, I'm kind of trying to find an angle, and I'm probably going to add a camera. Yeah, I add a camera. Yeah, so I'm trying to find a basic composition for this stuff right now. I'm not that worried about composition at this point, but yeah, just placing the camera, I knew that I wanted to get this diagonal elevation on the frame. Yeah. And started placing the crystals. And the funny thing with these crystals is that you can just make one asset and then use it multiple times, because you can kind of rotate them around and resize them and even edit some of the shapes. And it's pretty powerful. It's really quick to make and works a lot. Okay, let's pause right here. This is the figure, standard cinema 4D figure. And I find that people don't use it as often, because it's really important to have scale on the image, especially on these landscape style renders. So I always start with this standard figure just to get a sense of scale, and then I kind of swap it with a proper model. Yeah, just placing the figure right there. So see how I'm aligning, let's pause right here. I'm aligning the grids with the character. So that's really important. That's kind of basic composition like techniques. So, but I see often that people don't actually do this. It's pretty simple and it's really effective. You can Google it, like rule of thirds. It's, yeah. Okay. I'm just placing more crystals. So the idea here is to have different clusters of crystals on different like stages of the render. So it has more depth. I don't want all the crystals on the same region. I want to have the most depth possible. Yeah, I'm just started rendering with a basic HDR. working with a little bit more crystals right there. No lighting, nothing. I'm just focusing on like basic composition of the frame. Yeah, so right now I just copy the crystals to another file just so I can texture the crystals without influence of the scene, right? You have way more control. And you will see that actually all this texturing process for this crystal is a complete mess, because I start with a super basic material that it's kind of nice, but then I try to add a lot of detail with curvature and nothing works. But yeah, you will see what I mean. So yeah, I just added a little bit of subsurface, just a little bit, so I can get this milky aesthetics to it. Yeah, so I'm adding a normal map and then changing the normal map to cubic. That's important. Not the normal map, but the whole texture to cubic. Yeah, so right now I added a curvature node to try to add some details on the edges. That's pretty common. And I'm using a color layer to blend the curvature with different textures, so you can get a little bit more variation. I'm blending with a standard like roughness texture and a noise, so you can space out the texture a little bit more. And I'm basically multiplying the layers. That's simple stuff. And then I try to use it at least. I try to use it as a mask for the material blender. And turns out that it didn't work at all, because I don't know what the fuck happened, because I got a bunch of like smudges or like dark spots, and I don't know how the hell that happened. Probably because of the subsurface scattering and the layering of the materials. But anyhow, this was another day, so I didn't have much time to actually figure that out. So at the end of the day, I decided to go with the simple material, just the milky style, and deleted everything. So yeah. And of course I added like a roughness texture just to add a little bit more of detail. Yeah, right now I'm adding a little bit more light to the scene just to see how this material reacts to light. Because as I'm using subsurface, it's always nice to try to use lights from the bottom, so you can have different gradients on the scene. See, right there? Let's pause right here. The material, it's pretty simple, but it actually looks kind of nice. Yeah, now I'm making the floor, and it's simple stuff. I'm just adding a roughness texture and a normal. It's really simple. Yeah. As of now, I'm just using a dome light. I don't have any lights on the scene. Yeah, I just added let's pause here. I just added a tint to the dome light. I really often use this feature from Redshift that I kind of add a tint to the whole HDR, and then I light the scene with different colors using the area lights. Yeah, just adjusting composition stuff. Nothing that special. Yeah, so I now started lighting the scene. You see the first light that I place is actually one that contrasts with the character. See right there? Let's pause here. I added a light to reflect on those crystals that are behind the character. I'm doing this because I'm trying to create contrast between the character and the background, right? The last thing I want is the character to not be seen in the scene. Okay. Yeah, I'm just placing more and more lights, one behind the big crystals on the back of the frame. Then again, because I'm using subsurface, the light refracts really well inside the crystals and gives this kind of gradient look. Yeah, just adjusting the lights pretty much. Yeah, that's a lot of fine tuning with the lights. Yeah, I'm just adding a little bit of color right now. and then messing with the intensity. Yeah, now I'm actually swapping the standard figure for an actual model. And these figures are really nice. I've made them with Adobe Fuse. So I've batched a bunch of them like on different poses, and there are simple FBXs that I just copy and paste to different scenes. So yeah, right now it's something that I actually do a lot. You'll see that I'm adding a light specially for the guy, see right there. So I want the light on the silhouette of the model. But at this point, it's affecting the ground as well. So what I'm going to do is to use the project tab on the Redshift, so I can exclude the floor from the light. This way, it will only affect the silhouette of the man. See right there? Yeah. So this is kind of a plus on creating like contrast between the character and the background. I mean, it's not realistic at all, but there's nothing realistic about this scene. Yeah, so I'm adding a red color to the silhouette, just to again create more contrast between the character and the background. Yeah, so at this point, let's pause right here. At this point, I thought that the scene was lacking depth, so I tried to add some volumetric light behind the crystals, so I could get a little bit more depth between the crystals. Yeah, and if I recall correctly, I even added another crystal on the back, just so I don't have like a super empty space. Yeah, I'm just messing with the volumetric lights to try to create more and more depth in the scene. Yep. Yeah. Right now, let's pause right here. Right now, I'm actually changing the color of the light behind the character, right? Because I felt that the whole scene was around blue and pinkish tones. And since I wanted to catch the viewer's eye to the character, I even added a red contrast behind the character. So I mean, the character still has contrast because of the silhouette, and then we have the red color behind the character as well, grabbing more of the attention. Yeah, more crystals in the background. But then the crystals were looking way too flat, so I started adding a lot of area lights on the crystals in the back, just to have a little bit more detail right there. Yeah, I'm just trying to rotate the crystals a little bit, just so the background crystals kind of follow the same direction as the first ones. Yeah, so that reflection on the front was bugging me off a little bit, so I tried to rotate the crystals a little bit more to avoid that pinkish reflection right there. I'm trying really hard to get rid of that reflection, because again, it was catching way too much of the attention of the scene. I wanted to give more focus towards the character, but I ended up forgetting anyway. So at this point, I'm just adjusting the samples and the size and started rendering out. Well, I think that's it. I hope that this tutorial helped you in any way. If you still have any questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram, or maybe shoot me an email, whatever you want. And of course, don't forget to follow me on pretty much any social media, Instagram, YouTube, and whatever. So till the next one.